So one of the issues that agents have these days is how do you supplement your business with hired help? One of the first things an agent should do is not actually hire a buyer's agent, but hire an admin. And one solution for this is through virtual assistants, aka VAs. So we're going to go and talk with a VA specialist. And so here we have our very own Kelly Meng. Kelly is a former employee of mine. She was our marketing director for almost 4 years.
Mhm.
And so, what is the name of your company?
My company's name is Top Virtual Standard.
Top Virtual Standard. Okay, so Kelly left Spyglass in January or February,
March.
March, and has since launched this company. Well, of course, Kelly was a very valuable asset to our company and was there for 4 years and still part of the Spyglass family. So, what I want to take people through, obviously, there are companies like yours that can help them with it. But we want to talk a little bit about the do's and don'ts, the procedures of how someone can do this themselves. And before we start that, I want to kind of give I wrote an article on Inman a couple of years ago about how to start a team from the ground up, and it was based off of all the mistakes that I made, right? Like hiring agents and then hiring a part-time admin, then hiring a full-time admin. Well, really what people should do, what I tell them that they should do, and having learned this the wrong way, is you start with a transaction coordinator, okay? Then you hire a full-time assistant, and then that full-time assistant takes the role of transaction coordinator, and then you hire someone else to do transaction coordinator as your full-time assistant becomes busy, and then then at that point you can hire buyer's agents, right? Well, nowadays there are a lot of talented people in the Philippines. Take us through how one should look for first hiring a virtual assistant.
Absolutely. So, hiring a virtual assistant is something that a lot of people think is a very simple job. It's usually because it's tied with a low price tag. So, it feels like you have nothing to lose. But you don't get into the headache of the actual hiring process. It's still a very real person across the globe that you have to communicate with. You have to be able to tell them what it is that you want to do, how you want it to be done, and what the expectations are, right? So, in order to start that successfully, you as the business owner or the entrepreneur or whoever you are, the real estate agent, you have to be really clear about what their responsibilities are. What are they going to be taking care of day to day? You
Yeah.
shouldn't build a reliance for the VA from the get-go to ask you every day, hey, what am I responsible for today? What are my tasks today?
Right. And before we go into that, let me just give you a little bit of history of people that are watching or listening to this. Is that Kelly set up a lot of this within our company, right? I had been using VAs before she started, and I kind of had an outline of how it should be done. And then she really streamlined the process of how this works, and that's why she started this company, because she knew she was good at it, right? So, I think the biggest mistake people make when they hire VAs, and before we even go into that, there are companies that will do this for you, or that one of the problems when we really got into this was we were hiring companies that we were paying $6, $7 an hour, and they were paying the VA 3 to 4 an hour, right? Well, when COVID hit, the first couple months we were freaked out. We basically let that service go, and then went back to the VAs and hired them directly for us. Okay, and we treat them very well. So. I think what people get into when they're hiring a VA on their own is that they think that they're just going to put the job out and that they're going to know exactly what needs to be done. So when you're qualifying the VAs for a certain job, like transaction coordinator, or what are the other jobs that people hire for?
Transaction coordinators is a big one. A lot of appointment setting, some cold calling. Some people just want general VAs to do general things. Some
Mm.
people are more geared toward marketing, so social media management, content management, SEO, SEM, general marketing things, etc.
Okay, and so if someone's doing it on their own, right? And by the way, I would advise like, you use a company like Kelly's, but for the purpose of this broadcast that we want to talk about, if they're doing their own, where do they find these people?
So my biggest place that I like to go is a job form on the Filipino website called onlinejobs.ph. It's the biggest one. It's the most well-known one. There is a fee attached to it, but the quality of people that you would get there, the quantity of people rather, you
Yeah.
would get there is the greatest. The quality of people varies on a spectrum.
Right. It's like so. I believe it's like $69 a month, and
Yeah.
it's like the Indeed of the Philippines.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So when you talk to a client that's looking for, say a transaction coordinator, do you go on that platform and then look for people with experience for uh, transaction coordination?
Yes. So the general process we take for hiring people, once our clients are ready to start the hiring process, is we flesh out the specifics of the job description, the specifics of the responsibilities, and we make that very evident and clear from the get-go on the job description. During the job hiring process, we also give them behavioral assessments and technical assessments to make sure that they as a person align with the actual job. If you're
Oh,
doing
smart.
transaction coordination, right? Thank you. If you're doing transaction coordination, you would want someone who's very type A, someone very detail oriented, someone who lives and breathes transaction coordination. You
Yeah.
wouldn't want the same characteristics that of a cold caller who might be more outgoing and more, that of a cold caller.
Yeah, someone in sales is probably not going to be as good as someone in a more detail oriented role, right?
Exactly.
Okay, and then so when your process, do you interview several?
Yes. So we do initial screening. We look through all of the resumes. What we typically do is go through the behavioral and the technical assessment prior to doing an interview, because, of course, unlike the US, where ideally you want to do a behavioral assessment or not a behavioral assessment, a behavioral interview first. For the Philippines, you want them to be able to prove their worth
Hmm.
through electronic communication first, and
Yeah.
then get them on the phone and then assess personality. At that point, the last 3 to 5 candidates, they're all going to be good, right? But at the very end, it's okay, do I, for lack of better words, do I vibe with this person more or do I vibe with this person more?
Got you. So what you're looking for is, written communication, right? Um, Zoom to make sure that they have, the technological capability, not just capabilities, but the systems they need to use. Because, like, I mean, the Philippines, the internet's spotty over there, right? So you want to just don't want to take everything on their word from just like, okay, yeah, I have Zoom, I have all this stuff, but you want to actually see that they actually have it, right? Anything else with that with regards to that?
So with the hiring process, that's not the hard part. The real success of a virtual assistant comes from the onboarding and the processes that you have to set up prior to them getting onboarded so that they know where they situate in your company, they have
Yeah.
a place to call home, and that's where they really thrive and succeed.
That's right, and we set up. I mean, you're a big part of this, but we know at Spyglass Realty we spend, I mean, dozens of hours a year on updating our onboarding. It's the most important thing ever, right? And I think that's the reason why most people fail with VAs is they don't have the processes to onboard someone right and train them for what they do. So let's talk about that for a minute, okay? Our processes. You helped invent them. What someone is going to onboard, what does a successful onboard of a VA look like?
So the successful onboard of the VA starts prior to them accepting the application, right? Accepting the role. So that's where a shameless plug, that's where my clients and I would work together to actually build all the standard operating procedures, written documentation, video documentation, and task management platforms so that if someone were to come in tomorrow and say, hey, I'm ready for the job, you would be confident as a business owner to say, okay, you start Monday.
Yeah.
I'll have a little bit more extra time to answer questions. But here's all the stuff that you need to take care of. You can probably look starting Monday to the end of the year. Here's everything that you need to take care of. Here are your recurring responsibilities. And here's all the documentation for it. I want you to use these as a resource.
Mm-hmm.
If you have specific questions, I'm here to answer them. I'm not here to teach you how to do it
Yeah.
right here. She teaches.
Yeah, and so what do you recommend for that? I mean, we use Trainual at Spyglass. What do you recommend?
So I like Trainual a lot. Trainual is definitely more geared for US people, and it's also more costly.
Yeah.
But Trainual is really good. I think even if you wanted to make screen recordings and store them in the screen recording platform and then write up written Google Docs for that, that could also work.
Yeah.
We use a software to make basically screenshot plus descriptions of all of the steps that you would need to take to
Yeah.
do the task.
Because that's something you learned with over here,
Yes.
right?
Yes. And I said this to you offline, but I attribute all of this to you. In the very beginning of when I started with you, you're like, I know you're just going to leave at a later point because you're young and you're going to get a career in biochemistry or whatever you're going to do. So document everything because that day's going to come. And if you don't, then it's just going to be bad. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I said document everything as if you're going to get hit by a bus.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. Greyhound bus theory.
That's right. And so what that means is one thing in particular she's talking about is when Kelly first came on, we were like, we were going to do videos for them. And I said, look, we got to do more than just videos, right? You need to actually, do screenshots with an arrow, do this, then you do this, and then you do this. So are you doing that for your clients for when you're hired to train?
Yes. So what me and the client would do is we do weekly or bi-weekly Zoom calls. During that time, they screen share, we record the whole thing. They essentially teach me how to do it. Not because I need to know how to do it, but I need them to be able to communicate it clearly enough for me and my team to create SOPs with that material. Then in post, that's when we do all of the screenshotting and all of the circling and the highlighting, all that stuff to make it ultra clear. You would be so shocked to see how many errors can happen if you're just not so clear with it.
If you're not spelling it out to the T, because look, here's the deal, and this is not an offense to any VAs, but you have to assume that whoever you're hiring is going to be essentially a robot on a keyboard, okay? And so that does work for some people, right? And okay, I mean some VAs, and it works clearly. Now, you might find another VA who is just freaking amazing that is, I mean, I'll take Trisha for example, right? I mean, we don't do that with her because she's just, I mean, we probably started out doing that with her, but she's just like so good, right? But you don't need someone that good. What Trisha's job is she's just content, management and web development and all that stuff. You don't need that level of an employee to do transaction coordination or even social media management, right? What you need is a book for them to say, I do this and then I do this. And if this happens, that happens. If this happens, that happens. So the common, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, but the common theory that most people would think is like, oh, we'll do a video on that. We'll do a video on this. We'll do a video on that. It's not good enough, right?
It's not. And I like to think of it like this. Let's take you as an example. Ryan, you're a busy guy. You have 50,000 things on your plate at all times. Let's say you were to hire a VA today and you silly-nilly made 5 videos for their 5 responsibilities. You say, okay, this is good. You took an hour to do it all. And now you handed it off to them and you expect them to have XYZ done by tomorrow morning. All of the things that you weren't ultra clear about in your videos, those now translate to direct questions that they give to you.
Yeah.
Hey, I am on step 2 of this and the buttons are different. Like, what do I click now?
Yeah.
Hey, I can't find that button. Hey, I didn't type this. Now you have this backlog of communications that you now have to actively respond to instead of just proactively doing the thing that you're supposed to do, which is being ultra clear in your training manuals.
That's right. And quite frankly, the people that hire VAs are more likely going to be personality types like me, right? Which is not detail oriented, go, right? And so like when Kelly was with us, that's why I said, I did like one, right? Like I took the time to do the video and do like one and show her how it's done. But like, Kelly developed a lot of processes and put them into place. Every time she developed the process, she did it. And Caleb does the same thing, is like, I want you to do this first. Okay. I want you to learn how to do it. Okay. But then in order to delegate that, you have to document the process in detail.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, okay. So tell me about the type of companies that you work for now.
Of course. So I'm actually in the process of trying to define my niche. So my question or my answer is a little bit all over the place.
Sure.
But in the past, of course, I've worked with numerous different real estate agencies, such as Spyglass.
Mhm.
I've also worked with publishing companies to help them build out a tech team of virtual assistants to help the like graphic design, the development of books, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
I've also now worked with one company that does financial services. So appointment setting, cold calling, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
So again, it's a little bit everywhere,
Sure.
but the general consensus of what people need are either very type A people, document administrative, detail oriented,
Mhm.
or outbound, like, hey, I need you to get on the phone and talk to these people, or hey, I need you to email them and do client relations, stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. I probably should have said this before, following this outline of a video. But if you're made it this far, please do me a favor and like and subscribe to the videos on YouTube. And also, getting back to the VA stuff, I want to talk a little bit about the outbound stuff because we've never had that. So you have people that are actually doing like ISA stuff.
Yes. So not necessarily ISA stuff,
Mhm.
but here's a list of people that you need to call, or alternatively, here's the phone, and you might get a handful of calls today as the receptionist.
Oh wow! So you've hired receptionist.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you know how you use Ruby Receptionist?
Yeah.
Basically, some people want their own virtual receptionist, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? One of my clients came in and said, I have a kind of difficult last name, which by the way, is not that difficult. But
Yeah.
imagine having Rodenbeck. Imagine
Yeah.
having a virtual receptionist service like Ruby Receptionist, and everybody that answers the phone says Ryan Rodenbeck.
Rodenbeck is what they
Rodenbeck.
say. Yeah, yeah.
Or something
Yeah.
silly like that. So that was
Yeah.
their last straw. They reached out to me to say like, hey, we need someone to basically just be an assistant, do answering phone calls, occasionally make the outbound voicemail, respond to emails, take intake forms, all that kind of good stuff.
Wow, that's actually really. I mean, my Ruby receptionist bill is through the roof.
Hey, maybe we can talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when it comes to like hiring people with accents, okay, for that particular job, right? Are you finding qualified people that that don't have a thick accent?
Yes, we have a pretty rigorous so for lack of better words, accent screening process.
Yeah.
Where they have to submit an audio message, they have to do a video recording. When they're on the call with me, I have to assess like, hey, are you a good fit? Even if you're the perfect fit, but you have
Yeah.
a really thick accent, you wouldn't be a good fit for those roles.
Sure. And then what is a typical pay for different positions?
Honestly, it varies, but it goes anywhere from $4 to $9. $9 is on the higher end.
Yeah.
We found really great people for $5, $6.
Yeah. Okay. And then, gosh, what was I going to tell you? So for the receptionist thing, you're getting full time during business hours.
Yes.
Okay. And so let's talk a little bit about how your service works, because I think I've already recommended it to a couple people, and so here's the issue with a lot of these companies that do that. There's a lot of big companies called kind of Rocket Hire or something like that, whatever it is, right?
Task Bullet.
Yeah, yeah, and those are expensive companies, right? And I know that you're very hands-on. It's not like you have thousands of people you're working with, right? So, and by the way, Kelly lives in Manhattan. She used to live in Austin. So tell me about how your service works for someone that might be interested in your services.
So we really pride ourselves on not being an agency. For people who aren't familiar, agencies are companies that have a bunch of VAs in the back end
Yeah.
to basically work for your company take a pay cut, or not take a pay cut, take a cut of the pay,
Right.
which ultimately ends up in upcharging you for your services. You build a reliance on it, and then you feel like you can't get out. Of course,
Yeah.
that's probably better business practice, but from an ethical standpoint, I feel like my value really sits in the standard operating procedures, the
Yeah.
training and onboarding and the ongoing support that the VA would have working with me and working with you.
Yeah.
Right. So the VA, we would get that hired, and that goes anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the complexity of the role.
Mhm.
During that time, during the first 2 to 4 weeks, that's when we really start hashing out the specifics of the job description, all of the responsibilities. We record all of the day-to-day activities that they would be responsible for. We set up some metrics to be able to track that, like KPIs and the things of that matter, so that when they come on board, it's going to be maybe a week or 10 days of them getting acclimated to the role, still
Yeah.
having me as support, right? And then the actual technical, very detailed questions that I don't have the answers to, that's when you would come in. But those would be limited greatly based on the employee handbook that we make, the
Yeah.
task management system that we have, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So not only is she hiring a VA for someone, but she's also outlining procedures that you may not even have yet. If you have them, great, right? But it's more of an organizational thing. So what do you charge for the service? And I'm going to keep in mind, at the time this video airs, it's probably going to be cheaper than 4 months from now, because she's going to get so much business from all of my viewers. You know how many people watch this,
So
right?
many viewers.
Yeah.
Thousands.
Yeah, hundreds maybe if we're lucky.
Yes, exactly. As of right now, what I'm charging is a 3-month commitment for both hiring the virtual assistant and creating all of the necessary steps for them to succeed in the role. For that 3 months, we would meet either 1 to 2 times a week, anywhere from 15 to 60 minutes per week. If you're a really go get them type of person, then we'll probably meet 2 times a week at 60 minutes each and make all of the stuff. But toward the latter half of our agreement, as they're getting more acclimated in the role, it would look more like a maybe twice a week, 15-minute check-in. Hey, everything's looking great. That's awesome.
And
Right?
what's the fees for it?
So the fees as of right now is you can either do one-time payment upfront of $3,000. That includes the hiring of the virtual assistant. That does not include the actual virtual assistant hourly pay.
Of course.
And then so that could work, or we can do three monthly payments of $11.95.
Okay, that's great. I mean, well worth it in my opinion, especially for people that don't have these processes built out. I mean, it's worth it anyway. But I just started thinking about the value add for some people that I know that they may not have these processes built out, especially when it comes to stuff that's real estate related, which you have a ton of experience with. And lastly, where can people find you?
So as of right now, if you need to reach me, the best place is just through my email. That's Kelly, Kelly, at topvirtualstandard.com.
Or topvirtualstandard.com, right?
Just go to our website, topvirtualstandard.com. My team's not that big, so I'll see everything.
Yeah, and so all that information will be in the description box below this video if anyone's interested. I give her the strongest endorsement ever. She worked with me for 4 years. She's a doll to work with and a solid human being and very, very organized. So, Kelly, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.